welcome to Take 5 with Fanae 5. Hey, that's me. Today is Saturday, May 1st, and that means it's time for the Run for the Roses, the Kentucky Derby. Like my hat? It is also a time to talk about horses and jockeys. Absolutely not that type of jockey. No. I want you to grab your mint julep, sit back, and take about 8 minutes to travel with me from 1875 to today. And we will explore the journey of the African American jockeys in the Kentucky Derby during this time. Whenever I do research on the topics for these videos, I learn so much, and my hope is that you will too.
The Derby and Churchill Downs have become American institutions since their debuts in 1875, and countless individuals have contributed to their ongoing growth. Prominent among them are the African American jockeys and trainers who helped build the early foundation of success that now spans nearly a century and a half. 13 of the 15 horses that competed in that first Derby in 1875 were ridden by African Americans. When Oliver Lewis guided Aristides to victory for African American training legend and eventual Hall of Famer Ansel Williamson in that first Derby, the victory was one of 15 by African American riders in the first 28 runnings of the race. 3 of those history-making jockeys are enshrined in racing's Hall of Fame: 3-time Derby winner and national racing hero Isaac Murphy, and 2-time Derby winners Jimmy Winkfield and Willie Sims. Also prominent is William Walker Sr., who was born into slavery and, at the age of 17, piloted Baden-Baden to win the 1877 Derby. During a 60-year career, Walker also trained horses and was a bloodline consultant to John E. Madden, who bred 5 Kentucky Derby winners. Those men, along with fellow Derby winners Lonnie Clayton, Erskine Henderson, Babe Hurd, George Garrett Lewis, Isaac Lewis, and Soup Perkins, were among the brightest stars in American racing before government-sanctioned Jim Crow laws and the poison of racism pushed them from their hard-earned prominence. Their legacy is now restored, and the accomplishments of the early African-American heroes of the Kentucky Derby are honored at Churchill Downs during Derby Week with the annual running of the William Walker Stakes.
Good morning, Patrick.
Good morning. How are you?
Very good. And we'll talk a little bit about the big races coming up this weekend in a moment. But before we do that, just want to get a little of your background. Started riding in Barbados. How'd you get to Canada?
Yeah, actually, my brother Anthony, he was begging me from the time I was apprentice. I was having so much a great time in Barbados. Keep on saying no. And after 3 years, we get to realize that I need to move on. And I told Anthony I want to come up here, and he said, well, I was begging every cent, so I couldn't refuse the opportunity anymore. And
am I right? You crossed the 300 or the 3,000 career win, but that doesn't count the Barbados wins, does it?
No. But what it is, in the end of the day, here's more recognized all over the world.
He doesn't want to name the states where it took place. He doesn't want to name the trainers. But Kevin Krieger says it happened, and he says he hasn't forgotten.
I walked in his office and he's like, he says, you could get on my horses this morning, but I'll never ride your coon ass or something like that, you know. One of the worst ones was this that was said. He says, you know what? You're my slave. And that was the last day I got on a horse for him.
Those were isolated moments in a career, Krieger says. But for this 29-year-old who's won nearly 1,000 races in just over a decade of riding, those moments gave him a taste of something he had not encountered growing up in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
It's hard enough to be a jockey and riding your horse, and let alone being a jockey trying to fight off other jockeys swinging whips and trying to push you off the horse.
Deshaun Parker is the most successful African-American jockey in the sport, with more than 4,000 career wins.
If that was me at the time, I probably wouldn't be a jockey because I don't think I could go through it.
Over the past few decades, some African Americans began to trickle back into the sport, but only a few. Parker says he only knew of a handful when he began racing in 1988, and he says he has felt the subtle touch of racism throughout his career.
I've never been told that, but I've just kind of noticing that maybe a guy that isn't winning as many races as me will get the mount because of who he is and, you know, his color. But I've never, you know, had it told to me directly to my face.
They paved the way and they kind of like, you know, got pushed out of the game. You know, you got to have somebody that's putting in the time and the progress in a sport to show light to it. Seems like to me, with the eyes that I'm opening, I think I'm rewriting history. I think this is what I'm here for.
It took 2 decades and over 20,000 races to get here. But fittingly, it was his ride aboard a 72-1 long shot, who spent most of the race barely in the picture, that booked Carmouche's ticket to his first Kentucky Derby.
And here's Bourbonic, who was last, making a late run, dynamic one, and Bourbonic a photo finish. Bourbonic got there under Kendrick Carmouche.
Well, protesters gathered today in Breonna Taylor's hometown of Louisville, Kentucky for the 100th straight day. And tomorrow, thousands of people are expected to protest outside the city's legendary Churchill Downs racetrack, where the 146th annual Kentucky Derby will be held with no fans. Many folks actually want it canceled. And there is one thoroughbred horse owner who's been under growing pressure now to pull out of the Derby in protest of the killing of Taylor. He's Greg Harbit, co-owner of the horse Necker Island.
I'm a third-generation horseman. My great-grandfather was Will Harbit, who gained great notoriety with his association with Man of War. My grandfather, Tom Harbit, was a very successful groomsman in his era and actually owned a Kentucky Derby winner and Kentucky Derby participant in 1962 by the name of Touch Bar. Due to the civil unrest and the social segregation, even though he was the breeder as well as the co-owner of the horse, he was not allowed to be listed or come to the grandstands in that year. That's what makes this so much special as far as my participation with everything that's going on in the country with the civil unrest, to bring awareness of the contributions that African Americans before me have made to this industry, and to show the world as well as the racing industry that African Americans have made great contributions, as well as letting the awareness be known that as African Americans, we can participate in a sport in the industry that's not necessarily inclusive and looks like us.
Wow, that was a lot of information. But just think about what the jockeys had to endure, the courage that they had to have, the fortitude, the determination, the commitment to remain physically fit. Being a jockey is not easy. We wish all the jockeys the very best today in the run for the roses. But wouldn't it be fantastic to see an African American win the Kentucky Derby after all this time? Thank you again for joining me here at Take 5 with Fanae 5. Hey, that's me. Be blessed.